while I was in the middle of the live stream. So even sitting under the overhang wasn't cool enough for my phone. Apparently, it gets really hot when I'm live streaming. So anyway, I'm hanging out with Turkey, right? So we were talking about in the previous video. We were talking about the who really owes who, and talking about like third party claim, when you give up your money to a third party claim, and what it is that you are doing when you do that. You're basically putting your trust into another person, and whether or not you can trust those people is really where the system breaks down. And that's what we're finding, like with things like the bonds that are issued by the United States being absolutely the most trustworthy asset out there, right? The most liquid, guaranteed to pay, zero chance to default. And now, of course, that is a chance. There is a chance of defaulting on U.S. Treasuries, but it's the fact that they have never defaulted before. And here we have this experience that back in, the 40s or earlier, even that gold bonds or gold denominated bonds were sold to Americans by China, and they defaulted on them. They never paid us back. And so there's literally 100, or not 100, there is $1 trillion worth of these bonds that are owed that the American people own, that is due to them from China. And so when you think about the $850 billion debt that China owns the United States, that we owe them, they owe us far more. Now, whether or not that can actually be paid on, or the obligation will ever be fulfilled, that's a pretty I mean, it's a pretty far off question, I think, as far as like the availability of that happening. But anyway, yep, we're back. So anyway, I thought I'd show you guys my birds. I got these here turkeys, and I got some of the silky hens. You can kind of see them back there too. They look like they have fur as opposed to feathers. Yeah, they're pretty cool. Not much for egg laying, but they're kind of a neat ornamental to have around, as far as like creative looking birds. All right. Cool. Hey, Simon, and we're back. Thanks. Yeah, no problem. Happy 4th, Simon. Well, happy 4th, Eric. Video quality is rough. Yeah, it's because I'm holding my phone. I'm going to go sit back down over here and hopefully be in a little bit more shade, but I just wanted to stand over here where it was a little bit cooler. All right. And you guys want to see the garden real quick? Let me show you that. Just getting started with it. Got peas and carrots and zucchinis and corn. Got all the stuff out there, right? Okay, let's see. Maybe if I set here, this might be a little better spot. Need to be up there somewhere. There we go. What's that? No, I'm cool. I love silkies. We have 2 small eggs, but really broody. Usually have them hatch out eggs. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking I would use them for too. Let me use this table right here. All right, sorry about that. I don't know if this is the greatest live stream after we kind of had the mess up, but there we go. All right, cool. All right, happiest 4th of July, you and yours. Well, thank you so much, Richard. I appreciate that, and happy 4th of July back to you guys. All right, that's a great project. Yeah, that's the garden. Pretty much Sarah's done all of it. The only thing I really did was tear up the sod and amend the soil, and she's pretty much done everything else on it. Doing a great job on it. She loves gardening. Sweetness, nice greens, yeah. Deep fried live stream. That's exactly what happened. It just like my phone cooked, and look, I was just sitting right there, but it's a little more shade right here where I'm at. So, deep fried live stream. Let's see here. Show us your weed garden. There was a couple out there. Just go back and look. They're little plants. I mean, it's all legal here, so it's just like everybody does some just for fun. I mean, nobody really cares. Video is much better, thanks. Yeah, you bet, man. Yeah, I went over into the barn there for a minute where it was cooler to cool my phone down, but hello from Aussie, here currently in Lithuania. Very cool. Hot today in Oregon. It is hot today for sure. Do you plan on butchering the chickens? No, I'm gonna keep. Well, there's two or three of the silkies are roosters, and I really don't need three roosters around. So we might, and they're kind of a weird bird. They are all black meat and skin. There is no, they don't have like the light skin like you would buy from like a store-bought chicken. It's literally like black as night. It is the weirdest looking bird. So we might butcher a couple of those, and then the turkeys. They're the meat variety, so they're called broad-breasted whites, and the tom will get up to, like, when we finally dress him out, it will be anywhere from 30 to 36, maybe even 40 pounds. The hen, she will be somewhere around 20 to 25 pounds. They are huge, huge birds, much bigger than what you would typically see. And you can't really, like, you can cook those big old toms, like those 36-pound birds, but really, you cut them up, and you either can the meat or, freeze the meat for later or whatever. But yeah, it's kind of like a fun little hobby to raise a couple of turkeys every year. I used to raise a lot of birds. I used to raise, well, we would do them in either batches of 25 or 50, and we would do Cornish cross rocks, and we would order every 2 weeks and butcher every weekend, or every Thursday, because I had Thursdays off at the time, and we would do anywhere from 25 to 50 birds a day, and I did that for an entire summer, and it was a lot of fun. It was a nice experience to do it, and we made some money. We sold a lot of birds, had all the chicken we wanted to eat for a year. It was just like as much as we wanted, but that was a lot. It was a lot to do. Oregon is kind of fun. There's a lot of states that are like this. In Oregon, you can raise 1,000 birds and sell them off your property. You don't have any licensing, no inspections, no nothing to pay, no nothing, right? You can just legally totally do it. The only thing that you are required to do is sell them as a whole bird, and you can't cut them up and sell just the breast or something. You have to sell them as a whole bird, and you have to sell them directly off your property. Like, you can't take them and go sell them like at a farmer's market or something like that. At that point, then you do need licensing and stuff. But as far as just raising birds off your own property and selling them, you can do up to 1,000 birds a year and never have to pay or do inspections or anything. That's pretty cool. Yeah. All right. Let's see here. Are you zoned for roosters? Do you have roosters? Yeah, so I'm way out in the country here. I can have as many roosters as I want. And yeah, I do like having the roosters around, because if you do want fertile eggs, you have to have a rooster, right? But then they also help with the flock, right? They do a lot for, helping the hens as far as finding food and foraging around. Not that you really need to do that when you have feed provided for them, but they do help with that. And then the other important thing that they really do is that they keep an eye out for predators. And if a dog or, a hawk is flying around, it's the rooster that generally warns the hens that there's something going on, and then throws himself into the middle of it, like will go and fight whatever it is that's coming to attack the hens. So the rooster is a pretty handy thing to have around, and as long as they're not too noisy, like, because they do crow a lot, so like people can get annoyed by the crowing. But the silkies seem to just kind of crow a little bit in the morning. Man, I had a Polish rooster that would crow every 30 seconds. It was so horrible. Like, I eventually had to just get rid of him. It was like he would go all day nonstop, every 30 seconds. It was horrible, especially if you like cooped him up. If you cooped him, it was done. All right. Dishes is back in. Thank you so much for being here. What sort of phone do you use? I use this Samsung. I don't even know what model it is. Store-bought is the best. For what? Chicken? Ugh. All right. What's considered hot in Oregon? 80 Fahrenheit? Yeah, that would be considered hot. You get up to 100 degrees and the people here just can't handle it at all. All right. What kind of test would be best to allow to self-build their own home without oversight? Or is there no test or oversight a better way? To build your own home, as long as it passes inspection, I don't think there's any test, right? That's just what it is. However you put it together, so long as it passes the inspection. And even on that, it doesn't mean you got a quality home. It just means that you hit all the key points that that the inspector is looking for. He can't, I mean, he looks to see if the sheathing is nailed off properly or something, but, if it's, sheet up in the middle of a wall somewhere, he's not going up there and looking at every single nail and every single stud. So he looks at a few sheets, sees that it was nailed off appropriately, looks at the whole wall, says, okay, yeah, this is good, and checks it off. But, there could be, some bonehead laborer up there who didn't know what he was doing and failed to nail off a corner of the plywood, and so years later you see, like, their sheathing is pulling away from the studs and you're having issues with it or something like that. I mean, that can happen even if you have an inspection. So really it's like, the quality of the builder itself. If your phone isn't a beater, remember you're probably rushing into luxuries. Cantillon used in Nokia. Okay, Brody, getting on there a little bit. I've had this phone for like years. It's not a new phone. It's an old phone, and I use my phones up to the most that I possibly can. Like, what are you trying to get at, man? Because I have a phone that I'm diving into luxuries. I have a very average phone. It's not fancy by any means. I don't know what you're getting at. All right. If you've been in the bird game for a while, what's your thoughts on getting the odd black meat roasters? Well, I was just talking about the silkies, and I've eaten, like, what was it? I had some Aricanas, that very similar, had that very kind of dark. It wasn't not as black as the silkies are, but they were very, very dark meat and dark skinned birds. And to be honest, they don't taste much different from the regular heritage breed. I didn't notice anything really different about it, other than the look. And that look, the way it looks is kind of like, obviously changes the way something tastes, but it like, if you were to close your eyes and taste like a regular heritage breed as opposed to the silkies, then you're not, I don't know if you'd really notice any difference. I could be wrong. I mean, I've only had, well, really, I've had the Aricanas a few times, but now that I think about it, I don't know if I ever actually ate the silkies. All right. Make sure you hit the like button. Yes, thank you. 86 here in Happy Valley, Oregon. Yeah, I don't know what it is here right now, but it's warm. Oregon has whack laws too, though. Yeah, they do. They have some pretty whack laws on a lot of stuff, but then, also there's some pretty libertarian laws as well. Like, everybody kind of, everybody knew that Oregon was a very lenient state when it comes to weed, but it was like right away. Like, it's been decriminalized in Oregon since like the 70s. Like, if you got caught with a personal possession of weed, it didn't ruin your life. You didn't go to jail. You didn't, none of that stuff happened. You paid a fine and you went on your way, right? It was a misdemeanor. It wasn't anything. Now, if you had it, packaged up for sale, or you had more than an ounce, or, you were driving stoned or something like that, then, at that point you would get in trouble for stuff. But the simple possession of marijuana has never been a crime. It was a misdemeanor my entire life, All right. How does rooster taste? All right. It tastes like chicken, man. All right. My Mexican uncle fights roosters. They're awesome. Man's man. I don't really like admitting it, but it's kind of fun to watch the roosters fight. I mean, I don't set them up to do that, but, they're just naturally out there, doing their pecking order thing. And yeah, when they get to fighting, it's actually kind of fun to watch, watching them do their dance and stuff. It's, I mean, it's part of the nature of it. It's just what they do. But setting up those fights, that's, I don't know, a little bit cruel, I would think, because those birds end up dying from that stuff. So that's not right, but I do see the excitement in it. All right. When I was 21, I went to the casino and pretended I knew how to play craps. They got very upset. Love our two roosters. We have two flocks, about 20 birds each. Hey, everyone. Bright days are here. Well, hey to you too. All right. That dude over there, O2. Thank you for the $2 Canadian. Happy 4th of July from BC, Canada. Well, happy 4th of July to you. I use Charmin Ultra Soft. I must be over consuming luxuries. Yeah, you are, man. Charmin? Ooh, soft one, right? Wasn't serious about all about the phone. That was just intended as a lighthearted joke. Got it, man. Sorry, man. I don't know why I've been getting triggered so much lately. I don't know. Like the boss triggered me the other day too. Anyhow, hey, tuning in from Ontario. It's been a while. Cheers, Yui. Where's the turkey? You want to see him again? Um, yeah, hold on. The old Samsungs are very rugged. Used to have one. Yeah, it's a pretty decent phone. What else? What else are we going to talk about, guys? Do you want to should we talk a little bit more about like that third party claim stuff? That's really where like a lot of people, even within the banking system, a lot of people say like, you put your money in deposit at the bank or something, and then they use it to loan out to other people, and it's really not doesn't quite work like that. What a bank does is they have your deposits as part of their asset or withdrawing because you have assets and liabilities out there just like anything, right? So your assets are, your car, your house, your stuff like that, and the liabilities are all the loans that you have out there that you owe back to people. Well, the bank is exactly the opposite. Their liability is the money that has gone out there, and their asset is the loan that they have given you, right? So that loan is the asset, the liability is the money that went out there, and these two things balance each other out. Now, if they can take on deposits, they can get their liabilities back, which makes their assets worth that much more. Right, so the more deposits that they can get, the more liabilities back in. It offsets their balance sheets, making those assets so much better. And see, the exact opposite worked when we had those recent bank failures start to take place, as they had the assets and liabilities, and the assets started to fall, and then people started taking their liabilities out, and so it started working the opposite way for them, and that's why they ended up going bankrupt. But again, it's, the thought of putting your money with that third party. A lot of times you put your money in the bank and you're thinking that's my money, but it's not. You're an unsecured creditor. What you did is you lent your money to the bank, and now they have it. And thoughts on France? Does it affect trade? What part of France? Like the idea that they are starting to set up like international trade in yuan with China. I mean, that's happening a lot all over the place. And I mean, take a look at Argentina, right? Argentina is a good example of this exact thing, because even the Argentine government is allowing the people to now set up bank accounts using yuan, right? And everybody says, well, look at this. This is them getting out of the dollar. No, it's not. I mean, they are getting out of the dollar, but they don't want to. They just can't get the dollars. The dollars are too hard. It's becoming too much of a struggle, and they're having issues with the liquidity of it, right? So now, if you don't have the dollars, you have to have something, right? And what's the next best thing to use, if you're dealing with China, is to use their currency, right? So it's not like, I mean, they would prefer to use dollars. Like everybody would prefer to use dollars, but the dollar has become a pain in the ass, right? So now they're switching over to whatever is the next thing that they could use. And if you're going to be doing deals with China, then you use their currency, right? I mean, if China was accepting Argentine dollars or whatever, then they would probably use those. But China probably doesn't want those things because there's nothing they can do with them. So, and that's again, like, I think about when I hear like this de-dollarization, and then they use examples like Argentina as example of de-dollarization. That's not what I mean, it is them de-dollarizing, but it's not because they want to. It's because they just can't find them. They can't do it. And the liquidity is drying up. All right. Thanks for all the info published, Simon. It's very interesting. Much appreciated. Well, thank you, Brody. I didn't mean to like kind of go off on that. I don't know what's happened. Like it's something that I've been trying to deal with and observe, because it is something that does happen to me. Like I get triggered by stuff, and then all of a sudden I just get all uptight and irritated by things, and I go back and I have to like look at that, and it's like, why did that happen? Think back in your childhood at what triggered, what events was happening that triggered that, and I start to do that. So I'm gonna do that after this live stream. I'll think about like why I got triggered by this phone thing, All right. Thoughts on France? We did that one. Okay, talk about when you're doing the bingo thing again. Okay, well, I do bingo every Sunday night. So if you want to come and hang out and watch bingo, I mean, anybody's more than welcome to come to the Workers, Bar and Grill in Astoria. I start at 6:30 every Sunday night. I used to do them live stream, but and before it became an issue, because something had come up, right? Within the idea that I'm doing these live streams in the middle of a bar while people are drinking. There's people in the background who may not want to have that out there, right, for people to see. Like, even though you're in a a publicly accessible spot where it's okay to drink, that may not be something that a lot of people are feeling that is appropriate for their behavior in the bar is cool, but their behavior in the bar put out there for everybody to see isn't necessarily something that they want, right? They put themselves in that setting so they could be in that setting because that's the type of setting that it is, and they don't necessarily want to share that with the rest of the world. And I totally get that, right? Not everybody wants their lives out there on the internet to be seen. So as most people at the bingo game were very cool with it. Like, they were like, yeah, dude, do the live stream. It's awesome. We're all cool with it. But it doesn't matter. Even it just takes one person to say, hey man, I'm not comfortable with this. And and it wasn't. It was a few people who, and they didn't even bring up like, hey, I'm mad about that or anything. It was just kind of something that was a concern. And so before it became a problem, I just eliminated it and say, okay, because I don't want to ruin this thing. I would love to bring bingo back, and if there's a way I can, and I'm kind of working on it, I'm trying to, figure out what it is that I need to do, but I would love to have the bingo game back out there, or live streaming again, because that would have made a great show. It would have been a great YouTube channel all on its own, I think. Hey, thank you so much, Mark, for the 1776, man. That's very cool of you. All right, nice number to pick too. Happy Independence Day, Simon. Sorry for the doomer question on a holiday. I worry about the long-term sustainability of capitalism. Thoughts? I don't have a solution, just wondering if others are worried. Well, I think you should always be worried about the sustainability of anything because nothing stays the same. I mean, everything changes constantly, right? Including, capitalism and, communism and, whatever. I mean, there's one thing that stays consistent is change, right? It's always changing. And so it's not a matter of whether or not it's a sustainable thing. It's more about like whether or not you are positioned in such a way that you can take advantage of the situation that is at hand. And now if capitalism happens to be, you know, in your environment that you are able to take advantage of that, then I think that's what then that's what you do as long as you can, as far as creating like an economy or an environment that is sustainable, I just don't think that exists. I think it's a very organic thing. I think that governments are, interact with the economy, but I don't think that they make the economy. Like, I think the economy is something that functions all on its own. You have to think, like, there was an economy even before there was money. Yeah, and like a lot of people are like, well, blown away by that thought. Like, how can you have an economy without money? But you really have to think, like, you know, it's like it comes down to like all the way down to native tribes. Like here in the United States, we had the Native American tribes. These tribes would fight battles with each other, right? I mean, it was like these bloody, horrible battles that they would fight against each other in the attempt to secure the hunting grounds because there's only so much food that the land can provide and there's too many of us, and that's an economic event taking place. Right? Now, whether or not it's like commerce and all the borrowing money and all that other stuff, that's part of like economic events. That within itself right there is an economic event, and so really when you think about it in that kind of fashion, the economy is very organic and it doesn't really have set rules, to it, or a possibility of making it like perfectly guided. Right? It was just like we guide the economy perfectly down this channel. It's like it doesn't kind of work that way. Like the Federal Reserve drives the vehicle by looking in the rear view mirror. It's just like there's no rhyme or reason to the economic forces that are out there when you have the governments interacting with it. It's just a matter of interpreting, like, when the government does this, the economic forces will do that, and possibly these things will occur because of it. And, All right, happy 4th of July. Hey, John, thank you for the $1.99, man. Very cool of you. You foresee a recession in 2025? That's really interesting. Like, what it would be like, would it be like the official recession that, people were like, hey, we're in a recession now? Is it 2 quarters of negative GDP growth? Is it, when unemployment rises? I mean, what is it that defines the recession? I think about it, like right now, I was reading an article about how The recession. How do they say it? The recession? I can't speak. If I can't make up my own word, okay. The rich are in a recession, right? Is what this article was. And I'm sorry, I didn't put a link to it down in the description or anything, but maybe I will after I upload the live stream if I do that. The rich are in a recession, right? And they're talking about how the high-end jobs are getting laid off, right? You know, these people are getting laid off from their high-end jobs, and this is something that we had talked about. Like, you know, we talked about it when, you know, the unemployment was as low as it was, and the Federal Reserve started to raise interest rates. I said that, you know, the Federal Reserve is coming to knock the heads off the zombie corporations. People who lose their high-paying jobs will find themselves taking up service jobs. And so as the economy is bringing in new jobs, like, you know, the unemployment isn't rising, right? People are, you know, new jobs are being added to the economy. At the same time, you have these layoffs taking place up in these high-paying tech jobs. This is right. I mean, it's not a surprise. So what's the worst part of a recession? When you have unemployment rise, people lose their jobs, and then you have to go out and bail out the corporations. Well, if both of those things have basically been done, like the corporations that are viable are sitting on enough cash to carry them along for the next couple of years, and then the zombie corporations are going to get their heads knocked off because they're a malinvestment that needs to be cleared out of the system anyway. So is there a recession? Maybe are we in the middle of the recession right now? I mean, it kind of seems that way in a lot of ways, but not necessarily to like the individual who still has a job and is still able to make their payments and buy their food and stuff. They may not feel the recession like somebody who's working at the high tech jobs and then all of a sudden went from making $250,000 a year to making 35, you know, I mean, $35,000 a year. That would be quite devastating for individuals who have to face something like that. Of course, you know, I mean, who knows what the actual outcome of somebody getting laid off from a $250,000 job would be. I mean, I doubt they would go and start working at McDonald's, but they might, you know. All right. So, I mean, a recession in 2025, I think we're kind of really in it right now. In a lot of ways, and I think like the Federal Reserve had pretty much front loaded the bailout by, you know, running unemployment, well, when unemployment fell to as low as it did, and massive debt issuance by the junk bond corporations out there issuing out junk bonds, like that was the bailing out, and that happened all during the pandemic. And I believe that was front loaded for this event, you know, that is happening now as the malinvestment gets cleared out. Red is on. Red is on. If I'm saying that right. All right. Thank you for the $9.99, man. Very cool of you. I was asking, build without contractor, be industrious. My cousin in Brazil building me an A-frame home is a study of change of scarcity, a scalar or a vector. Is scarcity the most important principle? Wow. So, I mean, I guess it's scarcity that causes the prices to go up. I mean, when it's like, let me see if I'm trying to understand the question here. You know, I mean, you know, I don't know. I'm just thinking about building a house when during a time when there's not a lot of houses building. And if you can actually do that, the scarcity of homes right now gives you the advantage to be able to build a home for, you know, for a decent profit if you know how to do that. I guess that's, you know, kind of what the question is. I don't know. Maybe I'm just kind of rolling that a little too heavy in my head. So. All right. Love the turkey. Turkey in the thumbnail, Simon. Yeah. Those are my turkeys. I got 2 of them. For, well, a few more months anyway. What's the biggest bingo prize you've ever awarded somebody? Oh, well, we give away meat for prizes, right? So it's not like, you know, it's not like we give away a whole cow or anything. There is like small cash prize that the players play, but it's not for very much money. You know, there's not a whole lot going on there. So like really, you know, when we give away big roast or hams or, you know, turkeys or something like that. I remember there was a guy who, a fisherman who brought in 2 beautiful salmon fillets that he had caught earlier that day. So, I mean, that's a pretty nice prize. I mean, nice, you know, Springer salmon is probably worth, you know, $250, you know, so, you know, that was a pretty decent prize. What do you have? why don't you have a separate bingo game in some black back room that would be worldwide televised bingo? Well, okay, so the bingo game originally started back in like the 80s, right? Way before my time or anything else. And it was at that bar. The uh, the old man who owned the place, his name was Dick Todd. And Dick Todd was a very cool man. Anyway, he just trying to figure out how to drum up some business on Sunday, and he came across this old bingo set. So he went down to the store and bought some steaks and some, just some meat packages or whatever, and came back and played a bingo game. And it became popular. It just like everybody loved it, and it's been going on there pretty much the entire time, like since the 80s. And I wasn't the first bingo caller to do it. I just happened to be doing it now for about 15 years or so. But there was other bingo callers who did it long before I did, and quite a few of them. So it wasn't like me who set it up. This is the bar's game for Sunday night attraction to try and bring in customers in the middle of winter. Because if you ever been to like Astoria in February, in the it's like there's not much happening, and so that's what the whole point of the bingo game was, is to bring customers in. So it's not like I was trying to make a game that was going to be, you know out there to try and make a game that was going to be televised or something like that. That's not what it wasn't even my game. I mean, I just happened to be the caller of it and did such a good job of it. And then when the bar switched hands, so it was Dick Todd who owned it. When he passed away, Mary Todd, she had it, and then she eventually sold it to a lady, Diana, who's actually been on my channel. We did an interview not too long ago. She's a property owner, and she was talking about the insurance and going up on her properties and making it more difficult to have a profitable business, owning properties. And we actually had a great interview talking about that. So now she owns it. So like I'm like the oldest employee at the workers. Like I've been there longer than anybody else has, and the game is carried through a couple of owners. So like I said, it's more the bar's game than it is mine personally. Oh, I've been thinking about asking you this for a while. Have you read Sci-Fi by Robert Heinlein? No, I have not. And to be honest, guys, I hate saying this, but I don't read much. Like I got the Wealth of Nations right now that I'm trying to work through, and I will probably read maybe 2 or 3 pages at a time. Like after that, that's about all I can take in. And I can put the book down and then maybe pick up another 2 or 3 pages. But as far as sitting down and blasting through pages, I can't. I don't do very well at that. I got about 10 minutes. I get about 10 minutes of reading, and then my mind starts to really wander, and I have a hard time focusing. Sometimes I can go for hours, and it's just like it amazes me that I can actually do it. But my mind wanders so much, it makes it very difficult to sit down and just read books, as much as I would want to. So, and the Wealth of Nations is like 900 pages long. So, reading 2 or 3 pages at a time, it's a long time to get through that book. But eventually, I would like to get into the habit of doing it more. I'm doing it every day, but again, it's just like, usually only 2 or 3 pages. And it's amazing how I'm able to pick up as much knowledge as I have without reading like a lot of books. That really goes to show like, how much you can learn from listening to other YouTubers out there, other economists, just lectures, how much you can pick up reading the Federal Reserve documents themselves. Like that's really where I picked up most of my information, especially understanding like of the financial system, the banking system. It's almost came directly from the Federal Reserve itself. Like that's why a lot of times people accuse me of being like this, fan of the Fed or something, or I sound like the Fed, is because that's where I got a lot of the information from, was directly from the Federal Reserve itself. And when you take in the information directly from the Fed, you really start picking up the Fed's strategy. Like you understand what it is that the Federal Reserve is attempting to do because of all these little kind of comments that they've made throughout all the years of putting out these documents and research and speeches and stuff like that. So when other people are like, man, the Fed's lost control, they don't know what they're doing, and I'm like, how can you possibly say that? They talked about this exact thing. Like they talked about doing this right here, right now. I mean, they didn't lay it out in detail, but they pretty much said this is what they wanted. out of the economy, that they wanted higher interest rates and they wanted to get the neutral interest rate to be elevated. I mean, they were talking about this in 2018. And I kept asking like the question, I was like, how do you guys plan on doing that? Every time you raise their interest rate, raise the Fed funds rate, you totally crash the markets. And then pandemic, and I'm like, oh, I get it. All right. Looks like my dad's trying to call me. Here we go. I'll call him back later. Oh, all right. Let's see. And worrying is time that could better be spent taking action. Just wish I knew the future. Well, here's the thing, Mark. It's not a matter of like knowing the future. There's nobody who can predict the future. In fact, you can't. There's nothing. There's no point even thinking about the future or the past, right? Because neither one of those things mean anything, right? I mean, the past does have a meaning to it, right? But it's all the meaning you give it. It's all about this exact moment that you're at. That's really what it comes down to, because the future is not set in stone, right? It's not. There is no defined future that is going to be, this is the way it's going to definitely be. Because if everybody knew that, then, well, if people knew that, then, then they would be rich and have won the lottery already. I don't know. But that's not the way it works. It really comes down to the meaning that you give it and the thoughts that you go into. And this is kind of what I'm learning, like just as the other video cut out, I was talking about spiritual awakening, and that's really what it's coming down to. A lot of times when I might mention that to somebody, a lot of people are like, oh dude, you're falling for, a particular religion or something like that. And that's not necessarily what that means. I mean, I guess it could, but that's not what I'm getting at. The spiritual awakening that I'm talking about is the being aware, having that conscious, like expanding your consciousness, right? To be more present in the moment, to have that magnetic energy, to be like, to understand why it is that certain things trigger you. Like, the comment about the phone, like, why did that happen? And it's just like to understand that kind of thing. That's the spiritual awakening that I'm kind of referring to, And that's where, like, being worried about the future, that's what you will end up doing, is that if you are thinking in such a way that it was just like, oh my gosh, I'm worried about the future, right? These things are going to happen in the future, and you start putting into your thoughts, right, all these possibilities of these like horrible events, right? Catastrophic events, bankruptcies, and blah blah blah. You put all these things in your head, and believe me, I mean, I this is one of the reasons why I'm actually doing this whole spiritual awakening, is because having filled my field up, my aura, my whatever you want to call it, right, with all this negative thoughts of like things that happen within the economy, and they don't call it the dismal science for nothing, right? It's a very depressive thing to be following. But then if you put it into the meaning of depression, then that's exactly what it is. But if you don't put it into a meaning of depression, but it's more of just data, right? It's just information, and it's the information that I receive and the meaning that I give it is what I'm going to end up, experiencing in my world. Right? And that's exactly what it comes down to. So being worried about the economy and the future and putting these things into your thoughts and your field is going to provide that for you. You're going to end up with that kind of world in front of you. But if you don't allow that, I mean, it's obviously there's events that are going to happen, right? But again, those events are the meaning that you're going to end up giving it. So that's I know this sounds very like, kind of weird and out there, but really that's what it comes down to is, if you're looking at that information as something that's going to hurt me, then the information is going to hurt you. But if the information is coming to you as like, hey, this is something that I need to look at in order to make the best decisions I can for myself and my family, then the information doesn't have a meaning of fear or bad times or something like that. The information is just it. It's just a neutral information that I have to then process and use to to make the best decisions I can. And if you look at it that way, then it's no longer scary. You're no longer worried about it. I mean, you think, yeah, there's bad times that can come, but I'm doing the best I can with the information that I have, and hopefully intuitively I will be making the right decisions. I'm guessing if we are in recession, why hasn't land property prices dropped a reasonable amount? Okay, so a recession is slowdown in in economic activity, right? And as much as like a lot of people tell, it's just like, dude, money printer, you're delusional with the money printer, prices go up, right? Well, okay, yes. you can see like money when it's reaching its height really can be signaled that it's at its height by the property rents and leases, right? Because that is really where it's going to show itself the most, is in those particular things. It is, these are not things that are elastic, like, you know, it was just like, I mean, they are elastic in the sense that, you know, at times there's more inventory and less inventory, but it's not in the sense that, you know, hey, we can just fire up production or remove a bunch of inventory off the market. Like, that's not, right? There's only so much land that's set. And the people, that population keeps growing. So there's only so much land for so many people out there. And it shows itself in the prices when it comes to the expansion of money. So that land, those rents, that leases, that's the signal that money is at its height. And that's really like where it comes down to. Inflation in consumer goods, like in the prices of every little item that we pay, the inflation comes to that when an expansion of money happens and that money enters all channels at the exact same time. See, that's why we had inflation during the last quantitative easings, but we didn't have inflation during quantitative easing 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's because all that money printing didn't exactly enter everybody's hands and enter the system at the same time so everybody could go out there and start consuming at the same time. See, inflation is more about an expansion of consumption than it is about having money. Like, you can print up all the money, but if you take that money and you put it in a bank account and you don't spend it, then it doesn't inflate anything, right? Because it's sitting in a bank account. But the moment that you start spending that money, then it starts to create a situation in which consumption starts to increase. Now, if you start handing that money out to a bunch of different people, then more people can go out there and start consuming. And so what you have is an overconsumption to the amount of people who are wanting to buy, right? And that's really where the prices started to increase. And you saw that happen during quantitative, you know, the last rounds of quantitative easing. Quantitative easing 1, 2, 3, and 4, they printed up the money, but it landed as reserves on the big bank's balance sheet. And unless that money got lent into the system, it didn't really do anything. It just sat there on these big banks. And that's why we didn't experience the inflation scenario like the Federal Reserve was expecting, or everybody else was expecting, including me, during that quantitative easing 1, 2, 3, and 4. Because, you know, you print up that much money. They took their balance sheet from 850 billion to 4.5 trillion. They, what was that, like almost 5 times, right? They increased the balance sheet from 850 billion to 4.5 trillion. This last time around, they doubled the balance sheet, right? They didn't, like, comparatively, they printed a lot more, like a lot of money, you know? But on a percentage basis, they did a hell of a lot more during 1, 2, 3, and 4, going from 850 billion to 4.5 trillion. So really, that's how it ended up creating the inflation scenario this time around as opposed to last time. Nobody answers that question. When people say, dude, money printer go burr, prices go up, what else do you need to know? And they cannot answer the question why quantitative easing 1, 2, 3, and 4 failed to produce the inflation, right? But I explained it, right? You know, and a lot of people know that too. It's not just me. I mean, I've heard other economists say it. But when you get that stuck in your head that as soon as the money printer goes off, then the prices go up, that's not the case. It's got to get out there to all the consumers, and all those consumers have to enter in at the same time, right? To create that consumption across all channels. It's the way it goes. I mean, if you only give the rich the money, right, then the inflation doesn't really happen, because that's what we experienced during quantitative easing 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, let's see here. Maybe blame the Fed. Always blame the Fed. A recession is when a neighbor loses your job. A depression is when you lose your job. Yeah. Not that I'm a big Reagan fan. Just wanted to credit. Yeah. Well, no, I mean, it's very true. Yeah. I tried to give away meat, but no one wants it. That's too bad. All right. Used bingo to stack gift cards a while ago in my second favorite stack. Appreciate the advice. I will take heart to it. Hey, right on. It's hard to read like the old days. The internet fried our brains. Yeah. Alright, try audiobooks instead. You know, I've tried that, Matt. And I can handle audiobooks if I'm kind of focused in on it. I almost have to focus in on it like I'm reading, because a lot of times I'll find myself listening to an audiobook and they'll say something and my mind will get stuck on what they said, and I'll be processing that, thinking about it, instead of like pausing the book so I can, like, you know, think about it. And then I realize that, you know, they've been going on for 10 or 15 minutes and I haven't been listening, you know. And I'm like, oh crap, now I got to go back and listen to it again. but I have used audiobooks before to try and like, what did I listen to that I thought was pretty good? Think and Grow Rich. I listened to the audiobook Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, and that was good. That was a fun listen, you know. All right. I would like to ask you about your background a little, but don't mean to pry. I'm curious how someone working in the lumber got so far into economic monetary policy theory. Um, Failure, you know, is basically failure. You know, I was doing really well in construction for a while. Like, I'm framing houses, working for a couple of, when you can, when you can work hard framing, you can make some good money, And so, I was doing pretty well, doing construction, framing houses, and working for a company that was building condominiums and stuff. So I did pretty good. And then it was 2007, and my wife comes to me. She was just like, "Hey, I'm pregnant. This is our first kid. We're 30 years old, right? And we've been together since we were 18. So this is like, like, whoa, okay. So this is life changing for us. We gotta do things a little differently here. We don't know nothing. I didn't know anything about the economy at this time, right? 30 years old, clueless about anything, right? Thought I kind of knew something. I thought I knew a lot about politics at the time because I was following politics really heavily at the time. And I thought because I was following politics that I knew something about the economy. I was very wrong. So, 2007, we buy this house and things are going good. Um, our first kid was born. And then, like, immediately, like, there's like talk about housing market crash, like, just literally, like, after I bought the house, it's just like, the talk of it is just like really starting to ramp up. So before the year is over, like, full on housing market crash talk is happening, recession, everything's just going bad, right? And and I lose my job, right? Um, Doing that, and it was very difficult at that point. So I had some savings. My wife was working, and we carried along as best we can. Like, we went for a long time, like, I don't know, close to 7 years or something like that. After that, and it was just too much. Like, we never really quite recovered. And when you're going through, like, not to get too personal about it, but when you hit that hard times where you just don't have any money and you're wondering if you're going to be able to make the house payment, and you know you're having to cut back on, like, necessities and stuff like that, it's pretty depressive, right? And I found myself drinking a lot, smoking a lot of weed, and, like, just not doing very well in life at all. And so as kind of time went on, I wanted to, like, or we started getting into the point where, the house is gonna, I'm gonna lose the house. It's gonna go into foreclosure if we don't do something. And I'm really trying to figure out what the hell is going on. And so I'm just like, again, this is like, 2008, 9, something like that. And I'm just now, like, trying to figure stuff out, right? And so I'm like, I'm watching CNBC, and it's like, man, what the hell are these people talking about? And they're talking about the housing market crash and all this problem due to the mortgage-backed securities. And I went thump, and I stopped the TV, and I just turned it off. And I went over to my computer, and I'm like, what's a mortgage-backed security? And so I read up on what a mortgage-backed security was, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess I get that. It's kind of a bond that's backed by real estate. Okay, I think I understand a little bit of that. Not much, but okay. And I go and I turn the TV back on. Next thing they're talking about is credit default swaps. I turn it off. I go over, what's a credit default swap? And literally, I just kept asking questions after that. It was like, what's fractional reserve banking? What's a money market account? What's? And I just kept asking these questions and listening to other YouTubers. I was like, I got addicted to a lot of the YouTubers out there. Peter Schiff, like, I could not get enough Peter Schiff. I loved his information. I mean, especially talking about the housing market, because it just explains so much of what happened to me. So I really enjoyed listening to Peter Schiff. There was a great YouTuber out there. I don't know if he's still doing it. His name was SGT Bull. Oh man, he put together some really, really excellent videos. Chris Dwayne, I really enjoyed listening to Chris Dwayne stuff. And so I started putting, like, these these certain economists and these people talking about the economy, I started building this list of people that I would listen to. Doug Casey, Chris Martinson, these guys. I really enjoyed their content and their explanations of the economy and stuff. And so I started putting more and more of these pieces together and started just continuing asking questions. It was really when I started to look at the Federal Reserve websites themselves and started reading the data from the Federal Reserve, reading past speeches from like the 30s and stuff like that to explain how it is that we ended up leaving the gold standard and moving into this fiat standard. Some of the things that they were telling Congress at the time. You start putting all these little tiny pieces together, and pretty soon, you just kind of like, you just kind of have like this understanding of it. One of the things that we had mentioned just recently in a video is that, everybody's economic theory is a little different. When I explain the economy, I'm going to sound so much different from other people out there in the way that they see it. But then again, I'm not sitting on a pile of investments looking at where it is that I need to put that money so that I can continue to, have more increasing amounts of money. It's not in there. It's not what's going on in my head. And I'm not looking at it from a political point of view either. That's not the motivation that's going behind it. I am literally looking at this from a working class point of view. Like, how does this impact my life personally as a working class dude? How is it that the supply chain is so obvious to me right now, right here in front of me, but yet everybody else can't see it? It's because of the job that I have and the understanding of economics that I do. Even the people that I work with didn't understand why lumber was doing its thing, why there was a shortage, why the prices were so up there. These are people that I work right next to who know that I have a YouTube channel talking all about this stuff, who have been invited to Houston to speak about my understanding of the lumber industry, and yet they still don't get it. And they're sitting right next to me, And so everybody understands the economy differently. And it's all about it, of like how much data that you have taken in, how much you can remember about it, what you have put in as far as a set belief, and what you have ejected out as like, garbage, right? Because I have taken in a lot of garbage, and sometimes garbage comes out, right? It's just like, I can't help it. It's just like when you have so much stuff in there, it's just like occasionally something will slip out that doesn't sound right. And I mean, it's just gonna happen, right? But for the most part, I would feel that my understanding of economics is pretty good, especially when it comes to being able to, like, say, call out the Federal Reserve long before they started raising rates. I was calling out what the Federal Reserve was intending on doing, but I was questioning how it was that they were planning on doing it. But again, it's just like where other people were like, dude, they'll never be able to raise rates. You don't understand how the government can't afford higher interest rates. Those bonds are never going up. We're going into negative interest rates. You're stupid, right? And I mean, literally, that's what people were telling me. And I'm like, whatever. I'm sticking to my guns. This is what I believe, and I don't really care if you disagree with it or not. And when it came to the lumber industry, there's nobody else who called it out as well as I did. I mean, there might be somebody else out there who did it, but I can't find them. And I'm not trying to brag on that. It's just from the position that I happen to be at. I had access to mills, mill managers, vendors, retailers, contractors. There was nobody out there who I didn't have access to talk to. Loggers, truck drivers, everybody. And so when I'm piecing all this information together, I mean, I'm listening to everybody tell their story. I'm like, dude, tell me your experience. What's happened to you over the last couple of months, when I'm talking to a log truck driver, and I'm taking in all the information and listening to that. And then I incorporate that in with a forest manager who's like, doing, I don't know, however they bid the trees when they go out there and they say, okay, this is how much these trees are worth or whatever. Like, I don't know how they do their job, but listening to some of them talk about how much that they are actually doing going into the future, like, oh man, I haven't been up in the woods for a week, or these are things that I take in, and it's just like, wow, you start putting all these pieces together and you think about it. It's like, man, that conversation that I had with that dude plus this, and you start going and you're thinking, man, this is starting to form a little clearer story, and then you tell that story and damn, I was accurate, All right. I'd like to ask you about, oh, we already did that one, okay. do it. Let's see. My mom at age 70 won $1,900 first time at Bingo Place in South Florida. We got a bunch of mean looks by a lot of elderly at the place. Yeah, that's that's kind of funny. We so you have the regulars who come into bingo, and then you have the occasional, just somebody who's brand new, never been there before playing the game, and they end up winning the blackout prize or something, which is usually a fairly big roast or a big ham or something like that, and yeah, like everybody's cool with everybody winning and playing the game, but when it comes to that blackout game, man, it better be a regular or else. All right. Attention span is gone in society. Audiobooks help. Yeah, they do. No pressure to talk about your past, by the way. No, I don't mind. Like, I don't mind talking about my past, and I don't mind talking about the alcoholism, and I don't mind talking about that stuff. I mean, for one, I'm really open about it because, I had to face it. I had to own that stuff. A lot of people would be embarrassed. They don't want anybody to know that they were addicted to alcohol or drugs or something like that in their life. It's better to own that stuff. It's just like, yeah, it was a part of my life. It was the past. I learned, it was a mistake. I've learned from it. I'm moving on, and that's the way you kind of have to look at it. If you try and cover that stuff up, like pretend like it didn't happen, that's actually creating an energy within you that is very deteriorating, right? You have to own that stuff. You have to bring it out there, right? And say, okay, and look at it. It was just like, man, this was something that I had going on in my life, and you look at the reasons why. Like, why was I drinking? Why was I doing all this? Why did I feel the way I did at the time? And when you own that, the perspective of it, the understanding, the thought, well, then it just kind of disappears. Like, it becomes neutralized. It doesn't bother you as much. And that's why, like, even being triggered or whatever, it's just like, well, look at that. Like, look at that, what happened there and why. And think about all the times that you have ever been triggered in your past about that kind of thing. And then you might realize that it goes all the way down to some childhood impact that happened to you. And then once you kind of look at that and you think about it for a little bit, and you realize, well, that was something that happened to me. It was, you neutralize it. You think of it as a neutral, and it only has the meaning that you give it. And then once you become aware of that and you put the forgiveness, out there, it all goes away, and then it doesn't trigger you as much, right? Or hopefully it won't. So I don't mind talking about it. I really don't. I mean, for one, it's a part of my awakening. It's part of everything that's happening. So I don't try to hide from that. There's parts of my past. There's parts of me that I don't share. I mean, it's personal stuff, and it's not something that I necessarily want to put out there for everybody in the world to know about. It is something that I'll discuss with maybe close friends and family. It's not something I'm trying to hide. It's just something that I just don't necessarily want to share. And so it's not like, again, it's not like I'm trying to bury it or something like that. It's just again, it's personal, and I don't necessarily want to discuss it. But for the most part, I pretty much let you guys know about everything about me. Do you have an attention deficit? How do you self-teach yourself economics and with a struggle to read? Yeah, it wasn't easy, would be interesting to hear your story. Yeah, I mean, that's literally it. Like, I I would ask a question. I would hear somebody say something about the economy that I just didn't understand, Like, something as simple as, like, what's equities? Like, I would hear, the equities market, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, what the hell's an equity? Or just like that kind of thing. Like this, every day I would just ask these questions, and then I would read up on it or whatever. You know, um, it just, anytime that I ever heard anything, I would just research it, and hopefully pick up some information about it. I didn't have any kind of mentor or any kind of guide to research. I didn't follow any one economic theory out there. I didn't do any of that stuff. I just started picking it up. What's Keynesian economics? What's Austrian economics? What's free market thinking? What's, communism? What's the communistic manifesto? Like what, all these things. That has a lot to do with politics, but it also has a lot to do with the way people behave within the economy. Just asking all these questions, and then not taking on any set belief, right? And a lot of people think that I do have set beliefs, and a lot of times I do get very stubborn about it, but it's usually because they're trying to bring me an argument that I've already thought of. right? I mean, I've already taken on that line of thinking, you know, and this is the reason why I have this line of thinking is because yeah, I've taken that in. You know, something as simple as like the gold standard. Like I'm a believer in gold. I think owning gold, having gold in your possession is by far a great place to secure your wealth and insurance policy and stuff like that. But going back to a gold standard as a consuming nation like the United States, I think would send us right into poverty. And I'm not looking forward to something like that. And I don't really like try to push for something as a gold standard. I think individually ourselves as an American citizen, you know, or one of the people is what we really should say, the possession of gold and silver is almost a necessity, right? Simply to protect yourself from the government because they make terrible decisions. Right? So again, like having gold yourself, yes. Going to a gold standard, I don't think so, right? If we could manufacture a lot more than we import, if we could export, then I would say, okay, yeah, let's do the gold standard. Let's do Bitcoin. I don't care, right? But the fact that you are a consuming nation and not a manufacturing nation, I can't move to a gold standard. I don't like I couldn't see it. Um, if that was the case and we did move to a gold standard, I would move to the most manufacturing industrious nation I could because that's the one that's going to have the higher standard of living. It's just the way it goes. So we would end up lowering our standard of living if we went to a gold standard. However, prices would be really stable. You know, there would be that. All right. Have you ever tried listening to audiobooks? I find it much easier. Yeah, I have, and I do enjoy. Like I said, I listened to the Think and Grow Rich, which I thought was a great one. The Federal Reserve provides lots of good sources of material data. They do, and you know, and even though I am taking on a lot of that, I also have to take in the idea that when they put out public statements, that's propaganda, right? That is them trying to lead you down a particular belief. When you go and you read their Fed speeches, they are not necessarily giving those speeches to the public. Like the public can go and read them, but I don't know, like, you know, I don't know how many speeches come out that I rarely ever see covered. A lot of times what will end up happening is like one of these, you know, Fed officials will give a speech and then they'll do like maybe a public, you know, like a press, like a news outlet thing, you know, where they go and do interviews or something like that. And then they might be talking about their speech, but they'll give you like these little key points that they want people to know about. Again, that's the propaganda. You go and you read the speech and you can really see within it their line of thinking. And if you read every single one of these speeches as they come out, you can really see how this line of thinking is carrying on from a strategy that started years ago, even further back, right? You know, they really do give up the information right out of their website about what it is that they plan on doing. And when people are guessing, like, you know, what the Fed is going to do or that the Fed has made a mistake, it's because they don't really understand their strategy. Any advice out here who are trapped in a position at work they cannot leave without it negatively impacting their professional reputation, the operational needs of the facility? So if I got that right, what you are saying is that I need this job, right? Is that what it is? Basically, it comes down to I need this job, and so what am I supposed to do about it, right? If I was to do anything, I might ruin my reputation. It will negatively impact my reputation. I can't get another job. Maybe I won't get paid enough, you know, or something. If I leave this job, I won't be able to find the pay that I have right now. That is, again, that is the fear of the unknown, right? And fear is a low vibration, right? And so when you have this low vibration of fear, what you are fearing is the unknown, and you have an expectation out there. And because you have that expectation, you will actually lead yourself right into that. If you believe that you will ruin your reputation because of the job that you have and you leave it, you know, or something like for whatever reason you leave and you ruin your reputation behind that, and that's what you believe before it happens, before anything happens, and that's exactly what will occur, right? But that's the meaning that you have given it. Like if you don't have that meaning behind it, right? It was just like, hey, this is a great job, you know, whatever. People really, you know, okay, listen. This is a great job. I do well at it. Everybody appreciates how hard I work, but it's too much for me. I don't like it, right? I mean, it's all wonderful, but the stress of it, the drive, the, you know, whatever, it's more than what I would really like in my life, right? So if you have that, as far as the mindset goes, then just take it on and own that, right? It's too much, right? It's too stressful, it's too whatever, right? And I don't need that in my life. I can move on and I can find things that are beneficial in my life. And that's the meaning that I'm going to give this, this leaving of this job, right? I'm giving it the meaning that I need to find something that is better for my life. And that's exactly what I'm going to go do, right? And that's the meaning behind it. If you put the meaning behind it, it's just like, I'm negatively impacting my life by doing this, that's what will happen, right? But if you give the meaning that I'm positively impacting my life by doing this, then that's the meaning that you'll get from it. And if you are authentic, if you are real, if you are being truthful and positive in that idea, then most likely the universe is going to provide you with some sort of, answer to that. It's just like, you can't really help it. If you put that information out there, if you put out the effort, if you put out the intent, and then you stay motivated and positive towards that, it's almost as if it's almost as if it provides it for you. And in like, opportunities are all of a sudden, man, I didn't see that there before. It's because you happen to land on a parallel in which opportunities are starting to come to you, because that's what you believe is going to occur. It's not magic thinking. It's like, people say it's just like, well, think positive and positive things will happen. Well, there's a lot of truth to that, but it's a matter of the energy that you are putting out there towards it. Like, every subconscious behavior that you have is going to be a reflection of what it is that you got, right? Like, everything on the outside is a reflection of what it is that you are feeling. If you have a job that is stressed out, it's because you're stressed out, right? It's because you have this idea that I have a stressed out job, and that every day I'm going to be stressed out at my job. That's exactly what's going to happen, because that's the meaning that you have given it, right? But if you have this internal, it's just like, no, I'm at peace. I got a tough job that really requires a lot of attention for the time that I have to give it, and I got to focus in hard on hard on it while it's happening, and then when it's over, I give the meaning, hey, I accomplished the task that I had, and now I need to let that go and move on with my life or something. It's difficult to be that way, because a lot of us carry stuff. Something will happen in the day. Like, I'll have a customer who was incredibly rude in something, and I take it personally. It's like, how can they treat me like that or something? And then I have to realize, it was like, that was their stuff, right? That was a neutral thing that happened, and it's the meaning that I'm giving it is the reason why I'm pissed off. If I just like, wow, man, that guy was really uptight. He must be hungover or something's going on. Not necessarily give him an excuse, but just say, hey, that's not me. That wasn't me that was going on there. That was him, and I don't have to carry that. Like, I don't have to take that in and say, hey, I'm going to carry that for the rest of my day and be all pissed off about it. Like, that's, like, it's the meaning you give it. It's like, that's not, and so you can let that go. A lot of people can't. They'll take it home, and then they'll be mad, and like, maybe you get, irritated with their family or something like that because of something that happened to them earlier in the day, because they don't know how to let it go. And believe me, that was something that I had to deal with a lot. Like, I used to carry, energy like that for a long time, especially like resentful things. I had to get over resent stuff. Man, how long are we going here? What time is it? Okay, I'm gonna have to get going here, guys. I gotta go and hang out with my friend for the 4th of July. Go and have barbecue. Thought I don't think Simon would like his work. Though I don't think Simon would like his work. Who are you talking about? I like. Birds are trying to jump up here. I like economic theories. I really do. I like anybody's. What I don't like is when somebody is just like, maybe listens to my economic theory and says, dude, you're full of shit. And then that's it. That's all I hear. It's just like, that's all you're going to say? Like, you don't have anything to like counter it or something. Like, that's not helpful. Like, it was just like, I don't need that. What I need is just somebody that's like, dude, I heard what you said. I don't agree with it, and here's the reasons why. That's what I'm looking for, not somebody that was just like, dude, you're a buffoon, right? I don't need that. Like, that's not the energy that I'm looking for to try and expand my understanding of economics. My understanding of economics comes from counterpoints of view that are reasonable, and I don't have to be like, don't have to be like sensitive about it or something like that, but calling somebody out an idiot before you put an argument out there is a pretty easy way to not get your point across, because most people will stop listening, right? And that's, that's the thing about it. All right, loss of collective attention span makes us all weaker. The future may be intermediate. Now is the moment of power. You don't need to predict the future if it can be created. You can't create the future, right? You can set forth the path of which that you may be headed down and with the intent that you are going to achieve some goals, but you cannot make the future happen. All right. Yesterday was once today, so it definitely does matter. Your choice from yesterday affects your present. Well, it does, right? But the thing is that you can't look at your past and then say, okay, well, this is the reason why I can't continue on in the future, right? It was just like my past is my past, right? And now today I need to, move on from that. It's like, yeah, the decision, like you are right where you are today from the thoughts that you had, for sure. Are we ready to go, Mama?
Pretty soon.
All right. He's scaring the turkeys out of here. Totally agree on your comment. This is the exact moment. Split run between UE and his chat. I fried my brain with future think. Technically speaking, from a physics perspective, the past and the future don't exist at all. Only things presently aware of exist. Yep, that's exactly right. And so, one of the things that I found is like, I talk a lot, right? I mean, I talk on YouTube, I do sales for a living, so I talk a lot. I do bingo, so I talk a lot. I do a lot of talking. And I found a lot of times when people are talking to me, I feel like I have to respond, right? And then I realized that by not responding, you're actually saying a lot more, right? Lumberjack Landlord actually had that in one of his Instagram reels. Or maybe on the shorts, I can't remember, but he said something about that. Like when in negotiation, you let somebody go ahead and, do all the points that they want to make about it, and then you just sit there in silence and you look at them, right? And he said that is more powerful than you could ever possibly know. And really, even in a conversation, like being there, engaged in the conversation, intently listening, right? Focusing in on the space, right, between you and everybody else, right? But being there and listening, even if you don't say anything at all, it makes you more magnetic to the conversation than if you were just sitting there with your own thoughts, right? You're just sitting there with your own thoughts, thinking about whatever, even though, you're not saying anything either way, you will lose the attraction from the group, right? They know you're not there. They know you're not present. But even still just sitting there, not saying anything, but being aware of everything that is happening there, intently listening, then you would be amazed on how much more engaged you are with that conversation, even though you're still not, saying anything. It's a matter of the awareness. I mean, who knew that Ferris Bueller would grow up to become an accountant? Your attention is divided in whole right now. Interesting that economists call a downturn depression too. I think I messed up my future reading Doom in 2019 or 2009 to 2012. I know it created some issues for me, I think a lot of people go through it, like when you become aware of like New World Order kind of things, or like if you didn't know about any of that stuff and you start realizing that, there's there's some pretty weird stuff that's happening out there. Not to get too much into it, but like once you learn about like sovereign citizen kind of stuff, it becomes very depressing. Like you get a different understanding of how things are. Some people I don't think ever get out of it. Like once they realize that stuff, it depresses them, and then they just forever remain in that low vibration depressed area. And I know I was there for a long time, like because of that, because of the information that I was looking at. I gave it new meaning. Right? I changed that meaning around and said this stuff isn't depressing, it's just information, it's just data, and it's the meaning that I give it, right? And then if I use that information to put together a video and be entertaining and then make it benefit my life, well, then that information to me is no longer depressing information, but it's just information. And actually, to me, I make it good information because I make it meaningful to my YouTube channel, and then I can go from there. So again, it's just about the meaning that you're giving it. And I mean, it is depressive stuff, but you don't have to look at it depressing, like it's depressing. I mean, it is, and if you give it that meaning, then it will be. And it's hard to like say, I'm going to give this depressing thing different meaning, but you can do that, All right. I apologize if the joke about your phone was annoying you. For Simon, really didn't mean anything. No, bro, it's not you, man. See, that's the thing. Don't apologize for it, man. It wasn't you. It was me. That was me who was triggered by it. And it wasn't, I mean, you were just, just being cool, being you. Like, that's not you. That's me. That was me understanding. And actually, I thank you for it because now I can become aware of that exact thing. I can be, I can say, hey, why did that trigger you? Maybe next time somebody says something about your phone, you can laugh at it and not, and not feel triggered by it. So thank you. I appreciate it. Don't apologize. All right. I'm recovering now. Well, good for you. Good for you. Make mine a 99. Michael, he actually said his mind wanders when he reads, has nothing to do with his aptitude or the authors. No, yeah, and Benny, I don't think he was giving me a hard time that much. I don't know, maybe he was. But, it's just the way it is. I mean, it's like, I can own that. Like, I'm cool with it. Like, there was a time when I thought that, because I didn't do very well in school and I didn't get good grades and I barely graduated high school and all this other stuff, I thought that I was I thought I was dumb, right? I mean, you're in school and you're taking these, like, remedial classes and stuff like that, and it's just, you just kind of get this belief, that that's the way it is. How, eventually it just, like, I didn't I didn't know how much I knew about the economy. Like, I didn't even, like, even now, to me, I don't even realize how much I really know. When people say, man, I want to, I want to get your, thoughts on particular things, it was just like, really? Cool. Like, why? And again, like, I didn't know, like, that I had taken in so much information about it. I was just trying to figure out what was going on, and I had, access to the internet, and I had some time, and I just kept going with it. So, once you kind of have the belief that you're not, like, so many people were like, dude, you're so smart when it comes to this stuff, and I'm like, really? I'm smart? Like, I've never been told I was smart, I mean, that's cool, but then again, I was sitting in a class that didn't know how to teach me, right? I mean, not everybody's going to learn the same way. Some people can sit in a class, take in information, regurgitate that information right back out, get an A, no problem. It's like they have no problems doing that. I wasn't going to do that. Like, sitting in a class that was boring, and they were like, here, listen to me talk and lecture or do whatever for an hour, like, it wasn't going to happen, But yet, if you spark my interest and give me access to the internet where I can go and research all the information I want, I will obsess over all kinds of topics. When I was getting into chickens, I could sit there and talk about chickens like I talk about the economy. I mean, I kid you not. It was just like, I just obsessed myself with the knowledge of understanding, like, the raising of chickens and, the process of chicken, it's just whatever, it's just going on and on. But that's, because everybody learns differently. And so, but when you're in school and you don't get good grades and you're taking, like, these remedial classes and stuff like that, you just kind of get the belief that you don't know what you don't know anything. But it's not the truth. It's just the meaning and thoughts that you give it yourself. Awesome live. Cheers from Salem. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate you all being here, especially since I cooked my phone on the first go around. I strongly agree with your comment about framing of information. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that was just something that I've just recently learned, I mean, it's just like about the information you give it. Like, I mean, I've always taken in this stuff and just kind of given it out with my thoughts, but it was really like taking in more than just like the economic information, but everything from everywhere. Like, it doesn't matter if it was economics or if it was just, interacting with the guy down at the gas station. it's all about the meaning that you give this moment that it is. Like if, again, like, the customer who was irritated with me and, or whatever, and, treated me like garbage, I could have been like, that jerk, how dare he, whatever, and just been all filled up with like this, this hate towards this particular, event that happened. Or I could do exactly like I did, and it was just like, wow, it didn't have anything to do with me. I mean, I was just doing my job. He was irritated by the situation, took it out on me, whatever. It's not something that I have to carry with me, and I won't, right? But again, that's all about how each individual is going to deal with that. UPS mail service is still with U.S. carriers. In past, we worried. I'm 5 years into it. I'm sorry. Let's see here. The recession is cause inflation is outpacing growth in this case. That was the Rona payments. Total inflation mess. QE is not always inflationary. Yeah. It can be if it turns into loans. Okay. Jetters, you are being rude. Oh, I missed that one. Okay. Mark, again, I wonder if the flaw of capitalism with capital tend to gather in fewer hands at the top can be countered by printing more money, and that's what we are seeing. Well, I think like the whole idea, like capitalism, like the best thing about capitalism is it brings the highest quality of products to the market for the most efficient price possible. That's what capitalism, that's what like, I mean, in my belief, that's what the true benefit of capitalism, right? The highest quality products delivered to the market at the cheapest possible price. That's really what it does. Now, you can also look at capitalism as taking natural resources and turning it to garbage as quickly as possible. Okay, so those are kind of like the two ways you can look at capitalism. Both of them are fairly accurate. Right? But again, it's the meaning that you're going to choose to give it. Nothing lasts forever. There is no system that is like perfect, right? The moment that, in fact, there is no such thing as perfect anyway, right? No matter what you do, there is no such thing as a perfect situation. Not a perfect society, not a perfect government, not a perfect economy, not a perfect life. There is no such thing as that, right? And the reason is that the moment that you achieve perfect, you will be in a position in which that you have to maintain perfect. And if you are having to maintain perfect, that is inherently saying it's not perfect. Because if you had to maintain it, that means that it's not there. If you didn't maintain it and it was perfect, then it would be a perfect society, but that doesn't exist. The moment that you achieve perfect, you have to maintain perfect, and therefore it inherently is not perfect, right? So there is no thing as perfect. There is nothing that will be lasting or stable or whatever forever. It doesn't exist like that. It's only a matter of like how it is that is existing at the time that you are taking advantage of. And like again with capitalism, it's going to be cycles. There's going to be times in which that it sucks, and there's going to be times in which that it's awesome. And it's whether it's a good or bad thing is again all the meaning that you give it in the position that you have taken at the time that it's happening. All right, UE, you can see if you can be sponsored by Seaboard Corporation, ticker SEB. I don't know. I mean, guys, I did some sponsorships over the last year that I had a particular goal and idea in mind, and I wouldn't say I necessarily achieved that goal, but I think I'm at the point in which that I don't need to do the sponsorships now, right? I may have to if my wife's not working, it's just me, doing work in YouTube and stuff like that, and if I can continue that, I would love to be able to provide that for my family so that, Sarah can stay home with the boys and do that. And that's really what my intent was with that stuff. Just to kind of give you an idea of why. A lot of people will look at it as like you money hungry jerk or whatever. It's like, okay, well that's, again, the meaning that you're giving it, but yeah, okay, I can see where you're coming from. But that wasn't my intent. My intent was, much bigger than that for the family. So sponsorships, I mean, I like them. They're, as far as the money that comes in, that's cool. It's kind of easy money, to do it. But I don't think that's necessarily like the direction for the channel. Like, I think the direction for the channel is exactly this, you know, what we're doing here. You know, I think the viewer sponsoring the channel, that's what I want, you know, that's what I would like to see. Um, if I don't have to ever rely on ad revenue or anything like that, but just rely on just my viewers and, you know, participating in the, you know, whether it's I provide like, you know, Patreon kind of thing, or, you know, memberships for the YouTube channel or something like that. I think that would be just the best, you know, if I could do something like that. And then it would just be us. Like, we wouldn't have to worry about, you know, other advertisers or anything else like that. It would just be us, and that would be so amazing, you know. It is something that, you know, I would like to grow, but I want to be consistent with it, you know, and I can be consistent putting out a video on YouTube every day. I don't know if I can necessarily be consistent writing, you know, blogs for Patreon, or you know, maybe, you know, doing workshops or something. That might be kind of cool. You know, like I thought just recently, there's a the Wiki Up Grange isn't too far from where I live. It's a big building, old building out in the country where I live. So it's kind of like a cool old barn style thing where we could go and literally talk economics, you know, at this big hall, you know, and it's not that expensive. So I mean, I could do something like rent the hall myself and put on a workshop or a speaking engagement or something, and just do it for donations, you know, and just let the crowd fund it all. Um, you know, these are the type of ideas that I have. I could take on the thought, how do I make more money? You know, because I can, it's, you should see my emails every day. It's, you know, people are like, dude, how much does it cost to advertise on your channel? How much, how much, how much? And I look at it every day and I'm like, look at all this. There's this, everybody's just wanting to throw money at me. All I have to do is just talk about their product on my channel. And I don't do it. Like, I mean, I've done it a few times, you know, because it was really good, you know, it was really good money, but you know, I pass up on it all. And it's amazing, you know, you guys, you wouldn't believe it. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if I passed up on $1 million now, right? On the possibility of it. And that's like, and it's kind of sinks, like it hurts almost to think that that's what I did. But I understand, like, I wasn't doing this for the money, and I have abundance going. Like, I have the ability to provide right now. I don't need massive amounts. You know, what I need is to keep this going, and keep it going in the direction that it is. And so that's my goal. Like, that's how I intend on doing this. I hope to, anyway. And if I have that thought in mind going forward, then I'm thinking the universe will do that for me. Anyway, I'm gonna give it 3 more minutes, guys, because the family just poked their head out here. I think we're all wanting to go. Yui, let's see, yeah, okay. Let me go down to the bottom here, because I'm sure there's some comments down there. Oh, hey, I just got another super chat there. PK Palms, PK Palms. Securitization of the housing market is peculiar to the States. Would love to see you do a premiere on it and why there won't be a housing crash. Happy 4th. You and Lynette, you know what? Thank you so much for the 5 there. I don't know. I have, like, when I put out my views on the housing market, I have got so much like you know, from both sides, like, dude, you're nuts. Other people are, dude, you're spot on. I mean, it is very difficult for me to come out and talk about the housing market, because so many people are like, dude, you only say that because you just recently bought a house. Like, I get all this talk about it. You know, I guess I could talk a little bit more about, like, you know, the specifics of what you were saying here. You know, as far as like the securitization of the housing market, like, in what sense is it that you're referring to on that? Would love to see you do a premiere on it and why there won't be a housing crash. So yeah, I mean, I would love to see, like, maybe your thoughts, or maybe send me an email on your thoughts on it, and then, you know, that way I can kind of wrap my head around what it is that you were thinking of it. But I guess I hadn't really thought about it from a securitization, you know. I mean, I'm not sure on that. You and Lynette Zhang should do a video at her farm. Yeah, we should. I love Lynette. Lynette is the coolest. Like, meeting Lynette in person is like probably one of the coolest things that has happened. Like all the different economists and cool YouTubers and everything else, you know, George Gammon and Jason and Ken McElroy and, you know, Steve Van Meter and all the people, like everybody is so cool. But Lynette treats me like family. She treats me like I was one of her kids or something, or, you know, it's just like, she is such a nice lady. And just sitting around like having dinner and stuff with her, it's a very pleasant experience. Yeah, I can't wait to talk to Lynette again. And, you know, they offered me sponsorship, you know, for me to, you know, for them to sponsor the channel. And I mean, I guess I should. I should really like, you know, promote Lynette's business, ITM trading, because, you know, I mean, I've used her business before. She's like a friend of mine, you know. I mean, I feel good about that one. I mean, you know, I believe in, you know, the gold and silver movement as far as, you know, personal possession and ownership of it, very much like she does. I mean, she's, you know, her belief is like way up there, you know, as far as the possession of gold and mine is, you know, like she's under the idea that, you know, the dollar is crashing and all that other stuff, and that's cool. Like, I mean, we all have our own, you know, thoughts on it, but I do, you know, appreciate Lynette and her business, you know. The audience growing creates value, then you can cash out at will. Good path, homie. Well, and that's the thing. Like a lot of people, I mean, I got some pretty harsh emails, some pretty harsh comments lately, you know, over the whole thing. And I understand why, because I mean, I really do. I understand exactly where those, you know, where those comments are coming from and why they said them, you know. I would like to think that the viewers of my channel, the ones who have been, you know, here from the very beginning, you know that I I would have like decent intentions with that. I mean, I would like to think that you would think, you know, that I have decent intentions with that money. I wasn't doing it so I could go buy a new Camaro, which I really like to do, but that's not what I was doing with that. You know, and so, you know, some people won't ever forgive me for it. They'll call me a sellout forever on it, and that's, you know, that's the unfortunate path that, you know, that took. But you know, that's just how it is. I mean, I can't prevent people from feeling that way. You know. Just take the sponsors, right? If it's a product or service I don't care about, I'll ignore it like most YouTube ads. Well, I appreciate that, Matt. That's very cool of you, man. And that's really what I was hoping that most of the viewers would be thinking. And I think that's what probably most of the viewers do think. It's not the handful that gave me that hard of a time, or, you know, sold me or sent me those emails or whatever. It's not it's not those who I'm like I'm worried about. Like that's not the reason why I feel the way I feel. I felt like this before I did the videos, right? And it's not something that I feel bad about. It's just that it wasn't the direction that I wanted to go for the channel. But I really couldn't get that kind of money without doing it. You know, with I mean, quickly that much. You know, I mean, it wasn't like, you know, it wasn't like I made, you know, $400,000 or something like that. I just, you know, I made some thousands of dollars so that I can, you know, so that my wife could stay home with the kids and I would have a buffer that I could, you know, do what I'm doing now. That was the whole intent for it. And I mean, it was a very, you know, in my mind, that was a very worthy thing to do, you know. So I think housing will go down, but long term it's still good. I think, well, I mean, honestly, I think housing will go down. Like, housing has gone down in a lot of areas. Like, even me personally, my house has gone down, like, from its peak on the Zillow estimate. It's dropped like $100,000 or something. But it's still, like, I don't know, $70,000 more than what I paid for it. The amount that it has gone up in the year and a half that I've been here was stupid ridiculous. I mean, I never expected that to happen, especially as interest rates were rising. I did not expect my house to continue to go up in value. But I happen to be in a very unique area as far as how quickly the affluence has come in, right? So it became a very trendy area, and there's very few homes around here. So it's a desired place to be. I didn't know that. Like, I mean, I didn't even realize that growing up. I was just, you know, I mean, you know, you grow up here, you don't really notice the changes as much, and then you look back and you're like, man, this place isn't even the same as what it once was. But yeah, that's, I don't know. You should at least consider taking some of the money, capitalize on your success. Don't listen to the haters. Thank you, Isaac. I really appreciate that. And like, well, that's what I'm doing, you know, and that's what this is all about right now. You know, is is building up this community and getting it to a point in which that, you know, I can be just completely independent. Like I don't have to have my 9 to 5 job. I get to have it. Like, you know, if I wanted it, it's cool. If not, then then I don't, right? And that's the freedom of choice that I'm really looking for. To be able to, you know, provide for my family. You know, if the boy wants to take taekwondo lessons, then I'd like to be able to say, yeah, absolutely, no problem, you know, and not have to say, okay, well, I have to budget for that or something. That's, you know, as far as driving the new Camaro, I don't need it. I don't. I mean, I got 2 old vehicles that work, right? I'm good, right? I don't need any of that stuff. But being able to do those things for my family is so much more important for me. And you know, coming out here and being able to talk with you guys and have that be able to do this for me and my family, I'm good. I don't need the sponsorships. I don't need the money, right? I mean, I would love to have it. I would love to have $100 million, right? You know, just like to say I have $100 million. That would be awesome. But what I need in my life is exactly what I have going right now. This is like that perfect. Yeah, this is it. It could be better, you know, but it's good, and I would like to continue on with this, you know, moving this way. Get to instead to have to. Yep. Love your info. Sincerely, Grace Wildflower. Oh, Wildflower? Like the old Wildflower handle? Is that you? That is so cool. I haven't seen you. If that's the same, I haven't seen you in so long. That's nice. All right. Every channel I like has them, and it doesn't impact the content of the videos. Yeah. No, I appreciate it, and I shouldn't say that I won't do it. Right. What I guess I'm saying is that I'm not going to do them for right now. The sponsorships, right? Until maybe something else happens. Like I said, unless it may be for Lynette. Like I might do. I got to talk to. I kind of ghosted him a little bit because I just had other things going on, and I, you know, felt all weird about the sponsorship anyway. But I mean, I was set up, or getting set up to sponsor, you know, to be sponsored by Lynette, and I just never kind of went through with it. So, and it wasn't even like a crazy amount or anything like that. Not like doing those sponsorships that I did. It was literally for referrals. Like that's it. Like if you went and talked with ITM Trading, that was it. You didn't even have to buy anything. It was just literally just putting their name out there, and I don't have any problems with that because, like I said, I believe in Lynette. I believe in her company. So, Simon, take some of that money. You can. NTH is promised tomorrow. Nothing is promised tomorrow. Yep. Yeah. And you know, there's, you know, Mr. Balloon Pimp was actually, I don't know if you've seen him come up on the comments before. We emailed back quite a bit. Very, very, very cool dude. And he had some really good ideas as far as like, you know, creative ideas for me to, you know, kind of advance and monetize the channel. I mean, some really good stuff. You know, one of them was the speaking gigs, like doing speaking engagements, and I think that's really where like I should be motivated to go to, is to put on, you know, some kind of workshops or speaking engagements that, you know, that I can actually do some closer work with, instead of just being like on the internet or on YouTube or something. Hope all is well with you and your family, UE. God bless. Well, thank you, Vision One. I appreciate that. All right, guys, I'm going to give it like 2 more minutes. I know I keep saying that, and it's so much fun hanging out here, and this has been such a great live stream, and I don't want to stop, but I got to go hang out. I got to go be with the family and go enjoy family stuff, you know. All right. The people that sent the emails threatening and taunting Simon for selling out need to understand the position he is in. He has turkey to feed. Yeah, right? I mean, you know how big those things are going to get? You got to feed them a lot, you know? I totally agree, man. 35,196 home foreclosures so far. All right. Yeah, we're going to see. I mean, you know, I wouldn't be surprised to see a wave of foreclosures coming, but I don't know. Like, I'm looking at it from the unemployment side of things, and I'm like, man, I don't see it happening too quickly here. You know, I mean, it could happen later on down the road, but by that time, we may find that interest rates are going down and start supporting the housing market again. I don't know. Like, it's One of the things that the Federal Reserve, I remember them saying on more than one occasion, is that in order to have a functioning monetary policy, you have to have a functioning mortgage market. They didn't say anything about the price of houses or how many were for sale or anything, but a functioning mortgage market, meaning that if somebody wants a loan, there has to be one out there for them to get. Whether or not it's a good loan or they can actually get it, it just has to be available out there. And I think that's what the Fed is really pushing for. So. All right, so your wife isn't working at the soup kitchen anymore. Seem like a rewarding career and get the free food or the yummy extras. Yeah. No, Sarah's not yet. She worked at a grocery, but no, she's not working there now. So the boys are out of school, and right now that's what she's enjoying doing, and it's working out very well. And that's like that was something I didn't think that I would ever be able to do for the family or anything. It's just like when you are so broke all the time, but that's that's what we got going right now anyway. The haters will fill your new Camaro gas with sugar. Hey, you're probably right. Yeah, and then I wouldn't have a Camaro anyway because they would destroy it on me. Yeah. All right, hi Simon. I never get a chance to watch these live. Almost always watch it later. Hope you're having a happy 4th. Yeah, well, thank you, Flatto Dude. Flat2 Dude. Appreciate it, man. Well, thanks for being here. I'm just gonna go for about another minute, so I hope you just didn't step in because I'm home. I'm gonna go to a 4th of July barbecue. The haters will make a voodoo doll and probe you. Ugh. All right. Yep. Keep under lock and key. 99. Sugar in gas tank and smash down windows. Yeah, somebody smashed a window out of one of my cars one time, and it was like, it was during the time when I had just moved back into town. I bought a car for $650. It barely ran or whatever, and somebody threw a damn bottle through the back window. And I'm like, man, why does this stuff happen? Drove around with no window in the back of the car for a couple of days. It was embarrassing. It was all raining and stuff. All right. Minnesota, goodbye, Simon. Okay, well, we'll see you. Simon needs to make a Simon doll, glasses included. I just started wearing glasses. See, I can't read the comments anymore. Clear as day. Wow. Any suggestion of getting lumber at best price for multifamily complex? To get the best price on lumber, if you really want to get a really good deal on lumber or just the experience of building, doing a building project like that, is what you really have to do is go down to the lumber yard and learn everybody's name. Learn everybody who works there's name. And once you know their name and you have built up a relationship with them, like they know who you are and the stuff that you have done, what you may not necessarily get a break on all the items, right, that you get, because lumber yards, when it comes to lumber, surprisingly, lumber is not marked up that much. There is not much of a margin on lumber. Where you end up making money at a lumber yard, if you're a lumber yard, is through all the hardware, through all the nails, screws, glue, windows, doors, all that. Well, maybe not windows and doors, but all the other stuff that goes into building a house. That's really what you're trying to sell. So the lumber is like the loss leader coming so you can sell all the other stuff. So maybe don't worry about the lumber, right? And think, hey, if I buy all the hardware for my entire house all at once, can I get a break on it? Most of the time when it comes to hardware, the lumber yards have room to work on that stuff. They don't have a whole lot of room to work on lumber, right? There might be a little bit of room, but not much. So kind of take that into mind. Be friends with them so that you have a relationship, so they want to work with you. Because believe me, the lumber yard wants you to be successful at what you're doing. They don't want you to fail. They want you to keep coming back and keep doing what you're doing. So they want you to be, they want you to succeed. They don't want to rip you off and this will be the only job they ever do with you. They want you coming back. So, but they have to also make money. And discounting lumber is very difficult, but discounting nails is easy. Just keep that in mind. All right. Okay, guys, last one, and then I gotta go. How do you overcome the drinking and drug, Simon? Okay, good one. Good one to finish this up with. How do you overcome it? It's not easy. Okay, it's not easy, but you ultimately have to make the decision, right? Because most people, somebody else wants them to quit. They don't want to quit, like their wife or their parents or the kids or somebody else wants you to quit, right? They want you to give it all up, but you don't, right? If that's the case, you won't. You will never quit. You will sneak around. You will figure it out, whatever, and you will make it. And then you'll piss everybody off around you. Right? So how do you quit? Like, how do you finally give it up? You have to take that conscious decision. I'm going to feel this, right? I'm going to feel what addiction is like, right? Because you never really felt it before. Anytime you ever felt addicted, you went and got drunk, or you went and did some drugs or something. The moment that you ever had any pain or a bad experience or something like that, you want to go escape that. And so by drinking or smoking or whatever, you could alleviate the pain, right? Well, you have to sit there with it. You have to sit there with the pain, right? You have to sit there with the feelings of addiction. And you have to become aware that this is what's happening to me, and this is what addiction feels like, right? This is what frustration feels like, right? And just feel it, and just be part of it, right? And then know that tomorrow it's going to happen again, but it's probably going to be a little bit easier, right? And that's the way it's going to be for a while. For a long while. See, a lot of people think when you give up drinking, like 2 weeks later, it's like this magic world and everything's awesome and people are just like so cool with you and all this other stuff. They think, man, like my world would just be like full of rays of sunshine if I could just quit drinking for a couple of weeks. No, that's not the way it works. It doesn't even remotely work like that, because what ends up happening is you sober up and you start becoming aware of the things that are going on around you, and you realize how screwed up everything really is, right? So then depression starts to creep in on it. You have to be aware of these things. Know that they are coming, right? That is going to be part of it. And to not fall, right? Because it's going to be easy to say, man, I can't take this anymore. I'm going to go get drunk. I can't take the pain. I can't take the feelings of it or whatever. You have to, right? If you want to get through it. Now, the way that you alleviate a lot of that stuff, like a lot of the feeling of I have to sit here and just be frustrated with this addiction feeling, is you go to the rooms. Right? You have to go to AA meetings. You don't necessarily have to go to an AA meeting, but you have to do something of that type, right? And you have to go and you have to listen to the experiences of other people and some of the things that they are doing and saying that you can relate to, because you can finally say, yes, I'm not alone, right? I'm not the only one who is experiencing these things, and listening to the stories of other people talk about that makes it all that much better, right? To know that you're not alone doing this, right? You have a community of people who are trying to do the exact same thing that you are doing, right? And it's just a matter of trying to get through this, of feeling it. When you do, and you do find that, being in the rooms and discussing this and owning the idea of being an alcoholic and the feelings that you have from it and the things that triggered you to want to drink, you become aware of all these things. Like, hey, like this happened. This is something that would normally get me to want to go out there and get a 40, or this is the one that would normally, like, I would just get stoned as hell off of something like that after experiencing something like that. It's understanding, like knowing, seeing it, it's just like, wow, I know that this would have triggered me before, and I can see it and I can feel it, and I feel kind of triggered by it, but not so bad, right? When you when you finally grab a hold of that thing, right? And you're like, man, I can almost hold it like as if it was a ball in my hand, you will find that, oh man, there's my addiction. There it is. It's not bothering me anymore. I can see it. It's face value. Nice, right? And then after that, now you got something that you can work with, and you can actually talk about it and explain it, and be able to conduct your life in a way that says, I'm not like just angry because I don't have alcohol in me anymore. It's more like, oh, there it is. Right? Put that down for a second and go and do my real thing. And that's like me, I didn't do it that way, right? I got very, very angry and just took the commitment. This is like, I don't care how angry I am, I'm never going to drink again. And then I found that I was very I was very resentful of things. Like I found that, like, say for example, somebody maybe had a beer with lunch, right? Not a big deal, right? No big deal. I mean, people, drink beer with lunch all the time. It's not like, the individual's drunk or alcohol or behaving or whatever. It's just a single beer at lunch, no big deal, right? But because I could smell it on them when I'm doing business with them, I'm like, what the hell are you doing here? You know? What, are you coming here drinking, wanting to do business with me? And this was the attitude that I was taking. And I realized, whoa, man, that's my shit, right? That's not their shit. This is my shit. And here I'm irritated with this other person because of my shit? You know, that ain't right. That isn't even right, you know? Becoming aware of that, right? So that's one of the biggest like challenges that I had after I quit drinking, was to get over that exact thing. Again, the rooms, AA, you alleviate that right away, right? That is something that you deal with right at the very beginning, you know, is that you are going to face a bunch of these issues, right? If you quit drinking, you're going to face these things, and you could let them overwhelm you and, you know, control you or something, or you could be aware of them. And that's, again, like being in the rooms and, you know, listen to other people's stories of their experiences of it, and you're like, okay, I can do this too. All right, uneducated economist, you let me know.